I have an interview tonight. There's a documentary team from Switzerland, apparently, that took interest in our little crazy thing called elections, primary elections here in the United States. And Michael is with me. And we are going to chop it up a little bit about their documentary. And he's going to tell us a little bit about kind of why they chose, to come over here and check out this interesting experience we've all now been living for the past year. Michael, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Anoa. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
Thank you so much for staying up. It is after 2 a.m. there, so I appreciate you so much. This is awesome. I watched the trailer earlier when Hank's in it. Shout out to Hank, the youngest member on our team. Hank is still in high school, and Hank definitely booked this wonderful interview for me. So I'm so excited. You can just give me a little, background information and about the project. Just tell me a little bit about yourself and kind of what inspired you guys to do this. This is awesome.
Yeah, well, actually, I grew up in the States, so I'm American. And then
awesome.
And I've been living in Switzerland for the last 15 years, where I finished my studies in philosophy. And then joined an artist collective where we do transdisciplinary, antidisciplinary work. And one of the members of the artist collective, Lionel Roop, is a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. And so we've been working together on a couple of projects, and one of our mutual passions is American politics.
Oh, okay.
Pretty obvious for me, growing up in the States. I grew up in Western New York. But then to have...
where at?
So south of Buffalo, Fredonia.
Oh, nice. My partner's from Buffalo. Very cool. Yeah, so I know where that's at. Awesome. Okay, I'll let you continue.
And now I live in Lausanne, Switzerland. So it's the French-speaking part of Switzerland.
Okay.
And there's a group. We're 8 artists who have different projects going on throughout the year. And one of the ways that we work is that we have these sort of self-produced projects where we put aside money, and then we can use that pool of money to go and do crazy things that we want to do last minute. And that's kind of how it worked out, was that Lionel and I were sharing a beer one night and talking about how exciting Bernie Sanders' campaign is in the States, and how it's really, there's this groundswell. This is back in April, right?
Right.
This groundswell of support for this very surprising candidate for American politics. And the New York primary was coming up, and we decided just to wing it and buy the tickets and hop on a plane. And we showed up in New York a week before the primary. So the primary was on April 19th. We were there the Tuesday before, and with very little preparation. So what we did is we just kind of headed out to the different headquarters in New York, the one in Harlem, the one in Brooklyn, and just started contacting people and following people around, canvassing, and making contacts that way, sort of surfing the wave of the Bernie energy that was going on.
Gotcha.
And it was an amazing experience. And we met some fantastic people. We spent a lot of time in the Harlem
very cool
outreach center, and there was Michelle Watley who was leading the I've heard of
Black Outreach. Yes, I'm familiar with Michelle. Michelle and I have gone back and forth. I admin African American for Bernie, so Michelle and I have talked a lot. So very cool, awesome.
Yeah, and so we phoned pretty much just the nuts and bolts of the campaign that week.
Okay.
We were following seasoned canvassers around New York, seeing how people were reacting to Bernie's message, and and then everyone knows how the New York primary turned out. That Bernie ended up winning almost all of the rest of the New York State, but he lost New York City.
Right.
But we also saw a lot of voter disenfranchisement. We saw systematic voter disenfranchisement. We saw really people having a hard time even knowing where to vote.
Yeah.
And I think that what we saw was really that there was this movement in New York. There's a lot of enthusiasm, but people the machine wasn't completely up and running. And so for us, it was really interesting. I mean, it was obviously very disappointing that Bernie lost New York, because I think he running into it, he had a lot of momentum, and that sort of slowed down his campaign. But from a purely film perspective, it was actually very interesting to see this loss, see the people sort of realize that even in spite of all of these efforts that they had, that money in politics is so strong, and Clinton's name recognition in New York was so strong that he didn't get the Black vote in New York City, he didn't get the Latino vote, and we were with a lot of people canvassing in minority neighborhoods, and people were receptive to the message, but he doesn't have an army behind him, he doesn't have the money, and so it was really, I think, emblematic of the campaign. So we were really happy to be in New York, but we don't have an unlimited amount of funds. We live here in Switzerland, so it's really expensive.
Gotcha, definitely.
In the States, right? So we were hoping to go to California. We started a crowdfunding campaign. It didn't pick up, for one reason or another. We're sort of stuck at that $2,000 mark, which is great because it'll help us pay for some of the fees that we had in New York. But what we really want in this last week of the crowdfunding campaign is to raise enough money to go to Philadelphia.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about that. Like, so that would be, so you've been in New York. So are you guys thinking about, continuing the documentary and filming some more in Philadelphia? Or you think about a screening, or like, what's the plan ideally? What would you like? What was the outcome you would like to happen?
Yeah, ideally we'd have several sort of chapters in this film.
Okay.
3 or 4 chapters. We want to have a full-length documentary. We'd like to have an hour, 20 minutes. To then present to different media outlets, to go to different film festivals with it, and to really get sort of the message of this movement out in Europe and even in the States, to really document and to what's happening. So we have New York, which was, for the most part, very positive experience. People were very enthusiastic, and I think our documentary, the trailer that we made for the crowdfunding project shows that there was a lot of energy there. And now we'd really like to go to Philadelphia, because I think following what happened today, I still think that there's going to be, as you mentioned earlier in the show, the People's Convention. There's going to be, I think, the People's Revolution and all that is still extremely interesting from both a sociological, political perspective, but also for our film. To see what's going to happen to all of this energy now that Bernie's capitulated and endorsed Clinton. What happened to all of the diehard Bernie fans, and I'm definitely feeling it, and so I'm a little lost today, but I think our film still has a clear direction, and we want to go to Philadelphia. We want to get into the convention. We want to film the inside of the convention. We're looking to get press accreditation through our producer here in Switzerland.
Okay.
And we want to see, the sort of, smooth corporate side of the Democratic Party, and how all of that, is primed and smoothed over with prepared speeches and everything. And then on the outside of the convention, I think it's going to be extremely interesting. I think I still think there's going to be the masses are going to descend on Philadelphia. There's still that.
I think if now more than ever, I think there's going to be a critical mass on Philadelphia. So hopefully you guys will get to be there, because I'll be there that Saturday and Sunday. I will be with People's Convention. So that would be really awesome. And I'll definitely, I think Hank had sent me the crowdfunding stuff. So I'll definitely make sure we get that out. Like I said, I admin African Americans for Bernie and People of Color for Bernie, both very large Bernie pages. So I'll definitely get that up for you.
Yeah, every dollar, we're sort of focusing on this the famous $27 donation too, because we know every if a couple hundred people give us $27, we're going to go, and we'll come to you about it. And we have contact with some of the organizers of the People's Convention, and we really want to get there. And
nice. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, so since you've grown up here, you've lived here, and you've lived over, in Europe, like, from that's like an awesome perspective, right? Because we always wonder, like I wonder the chaos, like how do our elections, particularly this election cycle, like how do people like, what does this look like, for people abroad looking at what's unfolding here?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I mean, I've thought about it a lot, and especially since our documentary hasn't gotten a lot of traction, even among like our circle of wider friends or people are interested in what we're doing, and especially in the media, and both the local and the more national and international European media, we haven't really been following the Bernie Sanders and his movement. There's been also a media blackout. That's come over across the seas.
Yeah, we thought that was just here.
And I think that when I talk to people about this project, or I tell people I was traveling in France recently, that I'm American, everyone just mentions Trump, right? Because Trump's just sort of the guy that everyone loves to hate. And I think that Europeans, in a lot of sense, it's easier for them to grasp a sort of Trump candidacy, because it's part of this American myth of just sort of extremism and it's unfortunate, because I think a lot of people, if they had heard of Bernie Sanders, they weren't really interested, because they probably felt that it was sort of lost from the beginning, that there's no way that America would swing back to the left, to a more socialist, democratic perspective, which is what we have in Europe. I mean, a lot of Bernie Sanders' platform program is pretty much standard fare in Europe. I came to Europe, I was 20. And I was welcomed with open arms in Switzerland. I got went to the university with free tuition. They helped me pay for my health insurance. And so I got a great education for free. I mean, I encourage any American who wants to take the leap over to Europe, just to get on a plane and come and learn the languges and take advantage of, at least for a couple of years. I don't have to stay like I did. But it's
my daughter's threatening to move. My daughter is threatening to move. We all have passports, so that's pretty.
Yeah, there might be a mass exodus if God forbid Trump ever becomes.
I know. But I think that's great that you said that that's pretty much standard fare, because that was part of the rhetoric here is like, oh no, it's not as great as it seems. They have that stuff in Europe, but it's this, and that's one thing Bernie would say earlier on is like, this is like standard. What I'm saying is not even radical. This is standard in so many countries. So many of our allies do this. It makes no sense that they were basically the only ones who don't. Wow. So that's really free healthcare and free college.
It's not free healthcare. I was helping. They just had to prove that I was a poor student. Now I know it's for my healthcare. Switzerland has a private healthcare system. But it's mandatory for everyone. So if you don't have enough money, they'll pay for it. The government will pay for it. But if you are, working middle class, you have to pay for your healthcare. But it's universal. It's universal. It's not like that in all of Europe. It's actually usually it's cheaper. No, and I think that Sanders here in Europe would be pretty much a center-left candidate. He's not the extremist that the U.S. media has portrayed him as, and as there's a sort of slander campaign, and I agree with Jill Stein. I mean, that there was a sort of psychological warfare from the Democratic National Party against Sanders, and I think that the chips were stacked against him from the beginning, and that, it's amazing. I think as sort of an end of a political career, he's had an amazing political career. If this is the end, I mean, he's done much more than we could ever imagine. I think he's really vitalized an entire swath of the population. And it's sort of a depressing day for a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters. And there's stats coming out that The Guardian says that 85% of Sanders supporters will vote for Clinton. Who knows? But I think that he's done an amazing thing with this campaign, and that's why we want to film it. I think that this could really be the beginning of some substantial change in the States. And I think our perspective, coming from Europe, seeing that it's something that can be implemented, be implemented, for the betterment of the weakest among us. That filming this and bearing witness to this movement is really what we want to do, because I think in the next, in 20, 30 years, this could be a really important document for American history. Definitely
agree. So you talked, just to go back a little bit, just to what you've done so far, like with the New York process, like just maybe were there any takeaways that you guys had from that part? I know you mentioned that you witnessed like some of the voter disenfranchisement, and we've heard a lot of accounts from people about that stuff too. I think every primary day we would be flooded on the different pages I helped run with tests with people's accounts of this going wrong or someone's video posted. Were there any takeaways, I guess, maybe that you had, or just maybe any thoughts from like actually being there in the mix in New York to now today? Any reflections of like, he's endorsed now. We had all the excitement. It was one way, and now here we are. Everyone is in that kind of like, blah, where do we go from here? Which is why I'm trying to be upbeat.
Yeah. Well, I think, what I saw was, the New York elections went off except for the purging of those 100,000 or so.
Right, in Brooklyn,
votes in Brooklyn. There weren't long lines. I think the problem was much more systemic, and the fact that independent voters couldn't switch their affiliation, or they had to switch back in October in order to vote. So these very, these barriers, these systemic barriers to voting were very present. Everyone we were talking to, there were a lot of independent voters who couldn't even vote in the primary.
Right,
Going out and canvassing and trying to convince the registered Democrats to change anyway. So on the primary day, we didn't go. We couldn't. You can't go film in the booths or anything.
Right.
So we pretty much just heard and followed some people trying to get people to go out and vote at the last minute from the Harlem headquarters and everything. But what I really think we saw and what we witnessed is that we met people who didn't even know. They thought they could just go vote at their school, for example. So no, you have to get up early. If you've got classes, you've got to go across all New York. And maybe you'll find your voting booth. And it's insane for people in Europe, because it's so easy to vote. You can easily mail in your ballot. You can, and it's really making it difficult for people to vote is one of the ways that I think Clinton got her, beat Bernie Sanders by almost 400 delegates.
Right.
When Sanders, endorsed Clinton today, I think it was really against his own heart, because he knew that if the system had been less rigged in favor of the establishment candidate, I think he really had the popular vote. I really think he did. I think in the hearts and minds of American people, and that's what we saw in New York, that he's the candidate that everyone wants. And so that's what we saw in New York. And it's almost intangible in a lot of ways, because it's so systemic that it's some more in the conversations that we filmed and people canvassing, going door to door, and people being like, my wife's Democrat, but I'm an independent and I can't even vote, so, people really upset that they couldn't participate in the New York primary for several reasons, right?
Right.
That's what we saw. We really saw that there was this, everything, Bernie was fighting an uphill battle. And he had been from the beginning. And it's true. He said today that it's amazing that he has 1,900 delegates. I think that if people can start to change the system, get rid of the superdelegate process, and learn more about their civic duties as well. Like, how do you vote? Can we make the voting process easier for people? Get the young vote out. I think next election cycle, I think that there can be a real big difference. And some more progressive candidates, maybe a new progressive presidential candidate can win.
Awesome. So do you think that today's endorsement, do you think that changes the direction of your documentary at all, or does it just give you a new layer to kind of play with?
Yeah, well, we I was looking at some of the earlier documents that we wrote in April, and sort of predicted it, or like when what's going to and our question is what's going to happen to that energy when and if and now it's happened that Bernie endorsed Clinton. It doesn't change the direction of our documentary because we're following the course of events as they happen, and we're intuitively meeting people, striking up conversations on Twitter, and so this interview could be part of the documentary. Coming and seeing you in Philadelphia could become part of the documentary. So on the table, and everything's always been on the table. So we think that we want to. We're not looking at an objective perspective because obviously Bernie Sanders is an amazing candidate, but we're looking at it from a different perspective, looking at it from a more European perspective. And the fact that this happened is actually super interesting from a film perspective. So and so no, it doesn't change the direction. It makes it maybe a little more difficult to convince people to give us help fund the documentary because people don't want to necessarily watch a documentary about defeat of a candidate. I think people love winners. People want to maybe watch a documentary about Clinton or Trump. But we're going to continue making this documentary about Bernie's movement and the people behind him.
I think that's great. I think just the positive stories you shared about how hard people in New York, I think that's an example that we saw all over the country. And I think people do need to be reminded of, because a lot of it was the strength of people, right? Bernie was a great candidate, put a lot of great stuff on the platform, on the table here in the US that no one's seen since, basically FDR, like 80 years ago. But the people, and I'm really excited about the prospect of seeing, what you guys got going on, because we did something. That's why I try and keep it positive. I mean, this is phase 2 now, because we keep talking about, he says it's a revolution, but revolutions don't end with voting. So anything you'd like anyone to know, it's almost time for me to say bye. But anything you want anybody to know before we close out for the evening?
Yeah. I'd like to just share the Twitter handle for the
yes, definitely.
It's at Citizens Film.
At Citizens Film, and I've been tweeting them for like the last hour, so definitely check them out and give them a like.
We call the film "The Work in Progress" is Citizens United because we want to reappropriate that term. So it's Citizens United with an exclamation point. Nice. Should unite, and it's not the Supreme Court decision. It's what's wrong with money in politics. Let's get citizens to unite.
I love that.
So check out our Twitter handle. We're putting out some interesting GIFs. Where we're continuing our project on a more transmedia.
I love the "They Live" GIF earlier. That was great. That's one of my favorite movies.
We're doing it, and we've been working on that for like 2 days. So
that is like one of my favorite movies. I love that.
And if anyone's interested, we'll keep them up to date. Follow me on Twitter and the project on Twitter, and we'll keep everyone up to date. And hope to see you in Philly.
Awesome. Well, I definitely will be in touch, and I'm definitely interested and want to learn more. And I'm going to share all the information, whatever pages and groups I'm in. I'll make sure it makes the round. So I appreciate you so much. Thank you for staying up. We'll have to do this again sometime, and I'll try to see if we can.
Great conversation. Love talking to you.
I appreciate it. I enjoyed talking to you too. This is great. And also, you guys check out the trailer I tweeted out earlier too. It's pretty awesome. So thank you. I appreciate you. Have a good night.
Yeah, have a good night, you too.
Or morning. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much.